Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday and welcome back to the stream. Are we still doing hump day? Happy hump day? I don't know. That might be dating me way too old as one of those geriatric Gen Zers born in the 1900s, as they call us over on TikTok. I'm really pissed again, so prepare as I am about to rant for the next hour and a half plus of our lives over Star Wars again. I honestly feel really guilty that every few months I have to continue being the person to break this to people, that every few months they do something catastrophically new to destroy Star Wars from the inside out again. Which is great. A lot of people on Instagram think the title of this stream, Acolyte, the gayest Star Wars show ever, is somehow a joke or sarcastic. It's not. They're self-promoting it as such. And it seems that Kathleen Kennedy and her minions, largely Leslye Headland, who is the director of the new Acolyte series that just came out this week on Disney+, are so determined. They are hellbent on destroying Star Wars that they are willing to do just about anything to destroy the franchise from the inside out. We are unpacking a now viral interview from Star Wars Acolyte creator and director Leslye Headland that is going viral all over the internet today about how Star Wars Acolyte is the gayest television show ever, and how R2-D2, who hangs out right behind me, right behind my head every single day, by the way, I love R2, is a lesbian, according to Lucasfilm canon, among the many other dumpster fires that have begun to pop up over the last several years since Disney took over Lucasfilm in 2012. As you can imagine, as an avid Star Wars fanatic and self-described super nerd, I'm not a happy camper, and most of you are not either. So we're diving into all of it right here on the stream across platforms. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Getter, Locals, and Instagram, and doing what we can to do the Lord's work and get the truth out there to a world that's rejecting that very concept. As a totally independent channel, so appreciate all of your guys' support in helping us to grow our communities one person at a time. We are so freaking close to 1 million of you in our Instagram community. So please do us a huge favor and smash that follow button. And everybody else, if you can smash that follow or subscribe button, that would be so huge. We love you guys so very much. This is a true live stream. We are live in the moment. None of this is scripted. Your girl is just about to scream her head off for the next hour and a half with the hopes that anyone in the ethos who works at Disney may hear her pleas to try to save Star Wars from the brink of being blown up. Death Star edition. But because we are truly live, this is a back and forth conversation. So please feel free to use our live chat, which might be off to the side or right below you, depending on where you're watching. If you have any questions, if you agree with what I say, if you disagree with what I say throughout the chat, we'll say hi to a couple of people right off the rip. So let us know who you are and where you're watching from. And while you guys are dropping that in our chat, want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our amazing headline sponsor of the stream, our friends over at Public Square, America's largest and fastest growing marketplace of all small businesses, almost 100,000 of them, that are all pro-family, pro-faith, and pro-freedom. In lieu of Pride Month, which many companies are expected to celebrate in June, Public Square is instead celebrating true masculinity, which is precisely what Star Wars should be doing. I'm clearly very fired up, but we're glad Public Square is, even if Lucasfilm can't seem to find their butt with both hands these days under the tutelage of Kathleen Kennedy herself. So if you are looking for businesses to support that share your values, from food to eat to clothes to wear and everything in between, go check them out on publicsquare.com. And if you are a business owner of any kind, make sure to add your business over there as well. Let's say hello to some people, starting over on YouTube today. Rob Hellfire says, a robot lesbian? WTF? Oh yeah, we're gonna get into all of it. We've got Kay Roberts watching. I left Star Wars a long time ago in a galaxy far away. Julian's watching in Kentucky. We've got Steven Sfelter G, Naruto, Bright Space Babe, and more. Over on Rumble, Pureblood Stallion, Jim, John Best are kicking things off for us in our chat. We've got Son of Wisdom and Sam7 over on Getter in our locals community. Alex and M-Rock and Nitty Witty are getting spicy in our chat. And over on Instagram, we've got Nathan watching in Canada. Darwin is watching in Ireland. So cool. Jawad is watching down under in Australia. We've got Georgia, Ohio, Houston, Fort Worth, Texas, Florida, Orlando. Lots of Florida people tuning in today. We love to see that. Alan's watching in Northern Ireland. Samuel is in Nigeria. Colin says, I loved seeing you speak at Summit Ministries. Whoop, whoop. Big W's for Summit Ministries. If you guys are looking for a Christian summer camp slash like youth ministry training program, Summit Ministries is amazing. Definitely recommend checking them out. And I always love speaking there every single year. We've got New Mexico, California, Philly, Poland, India, Uruguay, Colorado, a bunch of people in Colorado, South Africa, Connecticut, Idaho, and more. God, I love you guys so much. All right, so chat, I don't know if you would consider yourself to be as much of a Star Wars fan as myself. I'm a pretty intense, diehard Star Wars fanatic, but I'm also just like a mega nerd in general. This isn't new information. If you've been following any of our channels for a while, you will know I am all in on all of the fantasy, sci-fi, everything series. Growing up, and probably still to this day, Harry Potter has always been my like diehard favorite series because like most people our age, I grew up with Harry Potter. I read the books as I was growing up. I watched the movies as I was growing up. And it was probably just like the biggest thing that I was into at the time. But I got really, really into Star Wars in my teenage and young adult years and have just absolutely loved the franchise more and more and more with every passing year. And when I say franchise, I mean the historic franchise, because like most lifelong Star Wars fans, particularly like my dad's age, there is massive mounting frustration with how Disney has handled Lucasfilm since they began acquiring the rights to everything in Lucasfilm, which, by the way, isn't just Star Wars. It also encompasses Indiana Jones and all kinds of stuff. How they have handled that since acquiring Lucasfilm in 2012. Basically, everyone is in universal consensus. The original trilogy is the best of the best. Some people argue the prequel trilogy is number one, but I think everybody agrees it comes in a close second. The prequel trilogy was amazing, even though it got all kinds of flack at the time. Can you imagine if we knew then what we know now? Like, I think we would have appreciated the prequels as they were coming out with so much love at the time, and now we can't because, you know, it's just, we can't go back. We can only go forward. The prequel trilogies, and then like way at the bottom would be the sequel trilogies that had all kinds of hype for The Force Awakens. And I've said this a million times, so I don't want to like rehash every single thing we've ever talked about with Star Wars today on the stream, but I think Force Awakens in and of itself, in isolation, was actually a pretty great movie. It got a lot of hype. It captured a lot of nostalgia. Fun fact, it was the most expensive movie ever made, and we're going to talk about money at the end of the stream as it pertains to Lucasfilm. And then it just all... as Episode 8 and Episode 9 came out, and in particular in the chapter after the sequel trilogy has been released, in which we are making all kinds of Disney Plus series and very controversial, potentially altering the canon of Star Wars projects under the leadership of now Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. People are really angry to see the exact same thing happen to Star Wars that seems to be happening to everything else in pop culture and in Hollywood, which is the intentional, how do I say this in a nice way, wokeification of every project under the sun. The new Acolyte series that just came out this week on Disney Plus, which happens time-wise in the time frame way in the past, with a young Padawan, former Padawan, reuniting with her former Jedi Master to investigate a bunch of crimes, and it's basically the same thing as the Force that we always know and love. Happens way in the past. This series that just came out this week is making headlines already with dramatically low audience scores, not critics, audience scores, and a viral interview by the show's creator and director, Leslye Headland, who you've seen a lot more clips of than you may realize in the last several months. We have the receipts. We're going to go through all of them today on the stream. But she's now under fire for laughing and saying she's, and I quote, into it when people are calling Acolyte the gayest Star Wars show ever. Then proceeds to add her own commentary. With that lead up, let's just listen to that ourselves together, shall we?
I'm going to ask you both because this is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable margin. And are you excited about that? Are you bracing yourself?
Star Wars. Not the
It's pretty gay, let's be honest.
It's pretty gay. It's pretty gay, let's be honest, as we do this, like, gay dance. Okay, we get it with your gay stuff, okay?
Leslye, how do you feel?
Am I gay? Yes.
Well, no, I know you are gay, but I'm asking, are you excited about
Shocking. Color us all shocked, Les. This is the creator and director. Am I gay? Yes. Is the show gay?
putting this, this is going to be a talking point.
Is it going to be a talking point?
I'm sure so.
Because nerds are gay.
Well,
Yeah.
not well.
Did you hear that? Because nerds are gay. Newsflash, nerds. Welcome. Welcome to the Pride Rainbow. Nerds universally are gay. I think that was intended to supposed to be some sort of compliment and or like badge of honor during Pride Month. Like, yeah, nerds are gay. What are you going to do about it, biatch? But honestly, nerds are gay to me stands out as a 2007 middle school insult when the kid who thinks he's being really funny in the back of the class is like, huh, gay in the back row. And everybody giggles and is uncomfortable. Yeah, that's to me what that sounds like. So welcome all nerds to gayness. Apparently, even if we don't realize it, all nerds are in fact gay. And we just better get on board. And then they double down.
Some nerds are very not gay and are very threatened by gay
Well, that's
stuff.
true. But
Yeah.
in my world, nerds are gay.
Some nerds, the interviewer corrects, are very not gay and are in fact very threatened and fragile when we try to gayify, to yassify every single Star Wars project under the sun. But in my world, says one of the actresses in the show, all nerds are gay. Can we just imagine for half a second if the roles were reversed? In my world, everyone's straight and gay doesn't exist and no one is gay. Nope. D-Rod says, I better go tell my wife that I'm gay. I'm just telling you, you guys might want to call home before you get home tonight and alert your significant other. In fact, I am a homosexual now because I am nerdy.
Is this the fun element of...
No, I don't think so. And yet people have told me that it's the gayest Star Wars, and I frankly...
You're offended?
Into it. No.
I'm frankly into it when people say this is the gayest show ever.
I think that Star Wars is so gay already.
Okay.
I mean, have you seen the fits? We'd be like, look.
Star Wars is so gay already. Sorry if you've been watching for decades and decades. It's already been gay. It's a gay icon show.
How gay this is, and then send each other a reference photo.
And are you telling me, with a straight face, that C-3PO is straight?
They're a couple. That's what I think. But this is more outward.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Ask Falana.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian, and you cannot sit there with a straight face and tell me that C-3PO is straight, okay?
Okay.
Ugh. So I watched that clip this morning, and honestly, I don't really know what to think. Immediately, I'm just struck by the fact that I've just been slapped in the face with the realization that I am in fact gay because I've been a lifelong nerd. It turns out all of the bullies in middle school and high school were probably right as they shouted from the back row of the classroom, gay! Newsflash. Sorry to my fiance, a man, and I am a woman. I guess it's not going to work out at our wedding in 24 days because I am in fact gay. if I like anything related to nerddom at all. Sorry. If you're into Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, if you're into any of it, you better alert the presses, and especially the people that you sleep with. So that slapped me like a ton of bricks. And then I thought a little bit more critically about the droid side of things. A lot of people commented on my Instagram video about this Alex Jones voice. They're turning the droids gay. And that's basically the most insane thing I've ever heard. So you heard it from Leslye Headland herself, director and creator of the Acolyte series and officially licensed to speak on Star Wars canon as the director of a Star Wars show. There's no way that C-3PO is straight, but in particular, what you really need to know is this little guy who sits behind me every day, R2-D2, is not just gay. He's not a man at all. He is, in fact, a lesbian. And frankly, I would just love for someone to explain to me how R2 could be a lesbian when we have documented footage of him inserting his little prong into the wall, if you know what I'm saying. That seems pretty obvious to me as evidence for the fact that he is not a lesbian. He has some external mechanisms here, not just internal, but hey, who am I to talk? Apparently, you can be a lesbian and have a penis in 2024 because nothing is everything and everything is nothing. And 2 + 2 = 5. And if you say otherwise, you're evil. Maybe he was wearing a strap-on. I don't know. How bigoted of me to understand the sexuality and genitalia of an effing robot that goes beep, 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 boop, 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 boop. So, yeah. They're robots, and don't we dare ask what C-3PO and R2-D2's pronouns are, because I'm sure that is going to be the next phase of the outrage associated with all of these things. But it turns out Star Wars has always been gay. Upon doing some research for this, it turns out that people have been arguing since like 2017 that C-3PO and R2-D2 are in fact some sort of gay icon couple. The internet has strong opinions as to whether C-3PO and R2-D2 are gay. So maybe I'm just late to the party, but you know, forgive the fact that I'm ancient at 27 years old, freshly 27 from a few days ago. I seem to recall a time where robots didn't have a sexuality, and it didn't matter, okay? None of it mattered because it was an effing robot, okay? But now we have to make it matter because everything is about sexuality and pronouns and gender identity. And if you don't agree with any of it, then you are an evil bigot. In particular, you are an evil man misogynist who hates women and wants everyone to die. We'll come back to the misogyny side of things, but just to add some salt to the wound here about how horrible I anticipate the Acolyte series to be, which I will wholeheartedly admit, full transparency, I have not yet watched. Most people say that the first 2 episodes are actually okay. It's not involving a lot of this woke stuff as of yet, although the audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes beg to differ. In case you want this to be any more difficult for you to watch as a Star Wars fan, here is, and I'm not making this up, a supposed fan of Star Wars who came into the series to act as a Jedi. He is a Jedi in the Acolyte series, explaining some of his favorite plot points from the history of the franchise.
Well, Anakin just killed a whole Death Star. How many people died on that?
I'm sorry. Who? I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry, who did what? Did we hear that correctly, chat? Anakin blew up the Death Star.
I did get in trouble for this answer at Star Wars Con. I got heat.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it's so funny to me because it literally, as a person who's outside and just a fan coming in, that was what was so beautiful and interesting to me. You know, people have been talking to me online about how Darth Vader is such a bad person. It's very clear, and it's very well established from those actions. But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star possibly killed millions and millions of people, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this right now.
You should just shut up.
You should just shut up. You should just shut up, his co-star says, because everyone is cringing over the fact that not once, but twice, this supposed fan of Star Wars coming into the series to be a Jedi, he acts as a Jedi in Acolyte now, doubled down that it was Anakin who blew up the Death Star and killed millions upon millions of people. You know, the older I get, maybe the Sith were on to something. Okay? Because, are you kidding me? This is all the same press tour. Star Wars has always been gay. R2-D2 is a lesbian. C-3PO is his gay boyfriend. Don't ask me how that math works. This is the gayest Star Wars show of all time. And Anakin blew up the Death Star. Not once, but twice. Same press tour. And everybody's just like, yeah, okay. Everybody at Disney is like, yeah, okay. I have to wonder if there are lifelong Star Wars fans working at Lucasfilm. I'm sure there are. Many of them. Who are working on these series and watching these clips and literally falling over and dying from cringe. Is there no employee at Disney under the umbrella of Lucasfilm that's like, what the actual hell did you just say? Claiming to be a fan of the show? Who was the actress? What was the series with, it was Obi-Wan, wasn't it? It was the Obi-Wan series. The actress that was the Inquisitor made some horrible comment a couple years back that completely negated all of Star Wars canon about how she was a lifelong fan. Dang it, I cannot remember what she said now. But yeah. Alex says, what's next? Obi-Wan was Luke's father? Probably. Actually, at this rate, I will not be surprised if we go back and we remaster the original trilogy to have Darth Vader say, I am your lover, instead of I am your father, because that's just where we're at right now in the United States of America and with Disney's stewardship of Lucasfilm. So, that's fun. On this press tour for Acolyte, which, by the way, is massively underperforming expectations, the creator and director of the series, Leslye Headland, who we'll show some more clips of here in a second, is already telling the media that the reason people are not going to watch the series and or she is going to receive a whole lot of backlash isn't because the concept is bad or the press tour is an absolute dumpster fire of flaming manure. No, she's blaming it on misogyny of the Star Wars universe because of the heavily male fan base. Delightful. The New York Times published this week. A loud primordial part of the Star Wars fandom has pushed back against Leslye Headland in a predictable fashion. A comment on the Acolyte trailer, one comment on YouTube, so indicative of the entire Star Wars fan base, says, why are there so many women, girls, and minority characters increasingly dominating the ranks of the Jedi? Which isn't a legitimate question. It's clearly misogyny, according to the New York Times. It's a version of the same misogyny and racism that greeted Rey, the female Jedi, played by Daisy Ridley, who made her debut in The Force Awakens in 2015. Not at all just the absolute crap writing in the movies that followed The Force Awakens that made quite literally zero sense as to how this person who has never picked up a lightsaber before or ever been trained in the ways of the Force could possibly become like the greatest Jedi of her time, but okay. It's the same misogyny and racism that drove Kelly Marie Tran off of social media when she appeared in The Last Jedi in 2017. Kathleen Kennedy, who runs Lucasfilm, has also experienced it, with South Park harshly attacking her in an episode last year. The cartoon, which we'll watch, we have the clip, depicted Kennedy giving the same feedback to Star Wars creators over and over. Put a chick in it! Make her lame and gay! Yeah. So the New York Times is wildly concerned people are going to be so racist and misogynistic against Leslye Headland that people are nicknaming the series the Wokalite. Lovely. Operating within these giant franchises now, Leslye says, with social media and the level of expectation. Sorry, this was Kathleen Kennedy. It's terrifying. I think Leslye has struggled a little bit with it. I think a lot of the women who step into Star Wars struggle with this a bit more. Because of the fan base being so male dominated, they sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal. So sorry, everyone who likes Star Wars. Because the majority of the fan base happens to be men, we are all evil, bigoted misogynists who hate everyone and want everyone to be ridiculed, mocked, bullied, and all kinds of other things all over the internet and in real life. Just because these directors are women. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the fact that they are intentionally trying to queerify Star Wars, but just because of who they are. Keep in mind, Leslye Headland has made headlines many, many, many times in the last few months, particularly on the red carpet, talking about her role coming into this opportunity to create and direct the Acolyte series. You guys might remember this clip going viral just a few months ago, talking about how important it is to include queer characters in children's TV and movies.
When I saw Frozen as a grown-ass woman, I cried through the entire movie. There was just something about the relationship between the sisters, the like de-villainization of the classic kind of fairy tale bad guy, you know, the concept of true love being between two sisters and not a heterosexual relationship. Like it just destroyed me completely. And I thought, gosh, you know, I would love to make something like this that is, you know, for lack of a better term, Disney, meaning it's something that like my parents would have allowed me to see when I was younger as a queer person.
Gotcha.
But I would have been able to understand as a queer person. And I think I would have had a completely different life.
So, correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, but she's saying Frozen was particularly unique in how she connected with the story because it was a relationship between two sisters as true love and not a heterosexual romantic relationship that really impacted you as a queer child watching a child's movie. I love Frozen. I will say this up front. Frozen is one of my favorite Disney movies. I think it was actually particularly unique that it was about the sisters, and I have two younger sisters, and it was a great story. I love Frozen to this day. But what about that has anything to do with your queer identity? Unless I'm like misinterpreting something, is she saying that a relationship between two sisters is particularly interesting because she's queer? Something about that just gives me the ick, to be honest.
And so I really was inspired by it and was like, God, I would love to make a story like this. And so when I was developing this original idea to pitch to Kathleen, I thought, well, you know, it can't just be that. You know, when you're pitching Star Wars, you have to pull from what, you know, George was also interested in. Like, it can't.
Yeah, you should. Although she then later argues in a different interview, you shouldn't be listening to George Lucas because that's misogynist. We'll get to that in a second.
Just be like, well, I'm referencing, especially if you're going to set something, you know, during the High Republic or end of High Republic into prequels, you don't have the Skywalker saga. Like, you can't reference a character that was created by George and or Filoni. Like, you have to create your own new characters.
And therefore, I would love to make a story that's based in what a queer child would be able to watch within the realm of Star Wars. She got in more trouble a few weeks after that interview and again went viral on social media by complaining about the inherent misogyny within Lucasfilm because everything has to go back to George Lucas. Just do yourself a favor and buckle up for this one, kids.
What we understand to be Star Wars, like the idea that like that only came from George Lucas, that only George Lucas holds the key for what we understand to be Star Wars is just untrue.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to interrupt these clips too much, but did this woman, who we just hired, not we, Lucasfilm, just hired to direct and create and develop a Star Wars show. Every time I watch this, I'm just completely bamboozled. She actually said, and I quote, the idea that everything has to come and go back to George Lucas, come from and go back to George Lucas, is just untrue. The guy invented Star Wars in his brain. What do you mean it's untrue? What do you mean? What do you mean?
And I think the prequels are an excellent example of that. I mean, the idea that like when you're hiring a director, that everyone is sitting in there waiting for George Lucas and not for the person who's going to know to hire Ralph McQuarrie, that's the problem. That's the misogyny and
the idea that everyone's waiting to cross-reference everything with George Lucas, that's the problem. And that's the inherent misogyny that exists inside of Lucasfilm, where they literally hate women, even though it's called Lucasfilm. The fact that George Lucas needs to like oversee everything is just inherently anti-woman. Like I said, maybe the Sith were onto something is all I'm saying. This woman is nuts. She's insane.
And the problem with the auteur myth as it stands today, because they're not thinking this is the person that will hire the right people and this is the person that will be able to create the lookbooks and direct people to get them to that place. They're just thinking, do you have all the answers? And the truth is that nobody does, and anybody that says they do is lying.
Nobody has all the answers related to the canon of Star Wars. Nobody has all the answers as to how Star Wars should be directed, especially not the guy who invented it in his freaking brain. And if you suggest that, that's just misogyny. That's just misogyny. How dare you? So, the fact that Acolyte is massively underperforming with the fan base, as predicted by the New York Times, as predicted by Kathleen Kennedy herself, and certainly as predicted by creator of Acolyte, Leslye Headland, who we just listened to, it's not because the content sucks. It's not because people are tired of woke garbage woven in throughout all of Star Wars. No, it's because the majority of the fan base are men. And men are evil, bigoted, misogynistic jerks who hate women, which absolutely is reflected in the fact that the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes of Acolyte is substantially different from that of the audience score. They're calling this show critically acclaimed because all critics have voted this show to have a 94% score on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score is quite literally 45%. The average audience score is 45% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is a flop if I've ever seen it. Josh wants to know, who is this woman and where did she even come from? That's a great question, Josh. And I think we all should ask ourselves, who is this woman, Leslye Headland? If you Google Leslye Headland, it comes up that she's an American film and television director, producer, screenwriter, and playwright. She is known for the play and 2012 film Bachelorette, and 2015 film Sleeping with Other People. Well, that seems pretty on brand, although I've never heard of either of these things. She apparently co-created some Netflix series Russian Doll. Never heard of that either. But interestingly, what Leslye Headland is most often known for is something that I didn't even realize was a thing. She was allegedly, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, the personal assistant to none other than Harvey Weinstein. Personal assistant to none other than Harvey Weinstein. She talked about this in a 2018 interview with American Theater, a publication on theater communications. Leslye Headland on Sin, Certainty, and Harvey Weinstein. She talks about all of these things related to her plays and movies, da-da-da-da-da. She wrote something that was a thinly veiled memoir of her time working as an assistant to Harvey Weinstein. So the fact that all of this is coming through now in the inherent sexuality of every single one of her projects, am I remotely shocked? No. But this is the most qualified person that we can possibly come up with to direct Star Wars. Largely because of the crusade Kathleen Kennedy has decided to enact against men to a franchise with a very heavily male fan base. It wasn't all that long ago. In fact, it was just January where Kathleen Kennedy's other very controversial hire, a woman hired to direct the new series of movies resurrecting Daisy Ridley's character, Rey, in the future, gave an answer on stage that made a whole lot of people really uncomfortable.
What is the balance of activating a force for change, but also trying to permeate that patriarchy, that power structure? And is that a part of the calculation of your art?
Because, of course, you have to permeate the patriarchy. You have to be a force for change in directing a Disney movie, particularly a Star Wars movie. If you don't, how dare you even accept the position? Full stop.
As well, and what's been the reaction to that?
Oh, absolutely. I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
You guys remember that? In January of this year, I like to make men uncomfortable. This is the new director of the new Star Wars trilogy films that are coming out in the next couple of years. I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
Not you, just not you.
Not
know,
you.
not you.
Point taken, point taken.
But, it is important to be able to look into the eyes of a man and say, I am here, and recognize that. And recognize that I am working to bring something that makes you uncomfortable, and it should make you uncomfortable because you need to change your attitude. And it's only when you're uncomfortable, when you're shifty, when you have to have difficult conversations that you will perhaps look at yourself in the mirror and not like the reflection. And then say, maybe there is something wrong with the way I think, or maybe there is something wrong with the way I am addressing this issue.
So, in case anyone was confused by that, yes, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, I'm pretty sure is how you pronounce her name, the new director of the upcoming Star Wars trilogy with Daisy Ridley's character, Rey, teaching the next generation of Jedi, has made it her mission through directing these films to make men uncomfortable, to force men, the vast majority of the Star Wars fan base, to have to take a good long look in the mirror and analyze, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with the way I view the world? Is there something wrong with the way that I think? Is there something wrong with the way that I take up space and have to sit there in your uncomfortability and face that every day? Every man, or maybe let's even be more generous and use their language. Every person with a penis and testicles ever in the history of humankind are not going to watch movies dedicated to making them uncomfortable. And that's the part that honestly blows my mind with why Kathleen Kennedy continues to make all of these decisions within the Star Wars franchise, within the realm, within the universe. You didn't need to make men uncomfortable to help men realize in Star Wars that women were already pretty freaking badass, okay? That women were already some of the biggest existing heroes, if not the existing heroes, within the Star Wars franchise. Just weeks ago, George Lucas himself reminded everyone of this while speaking on a panel on stage.
He said, there's no women in the movies. I said, who do you think the heroes are in those films? What do you think Princess Leia was? She is the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid that doesn't know anything and this boisterous, I know everything guy who can't do anything, trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. She's the hero of the movie. It's the same thing with Queen Amidala. Even though she has Jedi on her side, she was still a hero prime mover. You can't just put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. They can wear dresses, they can wear whatever they want. It's their brains and their ability to think and plan and be logistical. That's what the hero is.
Princess Leia was already a hero. Padme Amidala was already a hero. Ahsoka Tano was already a hero. You don't have to shove anti-misogyny and all of this popular pop culture woke language down people's throats to convey the message that women are already badass heroes. Do you think Princess Leia ever needed to make men feel uncomfortable in order to be universally beloved by the Star Wars fan base? No! No! In fact, Princess Leia didn't just not make men uncomfortable. For the men of that generation, Princess Leia was the male gaze, okay? Princess Leia and the gold bikini in front of frickin' Jabba the Hutt, anyone? Hello? That was the male gaze of our father's generation. And they didn't disrespect her for that, but she also wasn't a weak woman. They respected her for all of that. Because without Princess Leia, let's be totally honest, Luke and Han would have died a long time ago, okay? They needed all the help that they could possibly get. Padme, for the next generation, shout out Natalie Portman, was the male gaze for our generation. She was unbelievably beautiful. She was confident. She was strong. And without Padme, they would have been in big trouble the whole freaking time, okay? Men need women is the whole concept of Star Wars. The entire story laid out here is that women not only were important to the overall storyline, they were the reason that the good side was able to win over and over and over again. And Padme didn't need to make men feel uncomfortable and force them to confront their inherent misogyny. Padme was just a badass in and of herself. Ahsoka Tano! I'm not talking about the new series, although the new series was actually pretty good. I will give them credit for that, largely because it wasn't touched by any of these absolute lunatics that are trying to destroy Star Wars one episode at a time. I'm talking about Clone Wars Ahsoka Tano, okay? Ahsoka Tano didn't need to make Anakin feel uncomfortable about his masculinity or his manhood. Ahsoka Tano was probably the only person who was truly able to understand the struggle between the good side and the dark side of Anakin Skywalker pre-Darth Vader phase. And she was the male gaze. She wasn't there as an intentional disruption against manhood. So George Lucas is absolutely right. Women were already the existing badass heroes of Star Wars long before Kathleen Kennedy began this crusade against men and the male fan base of the Star Wars franchise, in the process to what? Just be controversial? That New York Times article citing the inherent misogyny of men, which, by the way, you guys can go reference for yourself. The headline is Leslye Headland hopes the Force is with the Acolyte. In this article, they cite that clip from South Park that came out not that long ago relating to Kathleen Kennedy's direction style of Star Wars. We clipped it. You're welcome. Tell me this is not literally what's happening in real life.
Is there a problem, people?
We were just discussing ideas of what to do with the new Prince Eric movie.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
Maybe we should go a different route than we did with Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, put a chick in it and make her name it gay!
Sure, yeah. Well, let's try that. Again.
Kathleen Kennedy is down on set right now ruining the new Bambi movie.
Put a diverse woman in it, make it gay!
Bambi's a baby deer.
Baby dear, put a chick in it, make her gay!
We've sent her away to have lunch at Spago. There you are, Miss Kennedy, the linguine and clam sauce.
Excuse me, I believe I asked you to put a chick in this and make her gay?
Yes, the chef was a little confused what you meant by that.
Means put a chick in the linguine and make her gay! And I want it lame! Where the f*** is Bob Iger?
Mr. Iger just had to take some of the others to a screening.
I think that things are being kept from me. And if you're going to keep things from me, then you'd better put a chick in it and make it gay as
Excuse me. I believe I said I wanted this lame and gay. And I want it lame. Literally iconic. Iconic. South Park is hilarious in and of itself. But tell me that is not actually what's happening in real life. Kathleen Kennedy, what do you want to do with the next Star Wars project? I want to put a chick in it, and I want to make her gay and lame while we're at it. Fast forward to this week. Star Wars The Acolyte is the gayest series of all time, and R2-D2 is a lesbian, has always been a lesbian. What do you mean you didn't know that? Obviously, this is not panning out well for Disney. And interestingly, back in April, about a month and a half ago, Forbes magazine ran a whole story after a massive investigative journalism project analyzing more than 800 pages of internal Disney documents about how much money the company is struggling with and or losing solely because of Star Wars. If you Google like revenue made from the Disney Star Wars movies, revenue made from Force Awakens and from The Last Jedi and all of these things, the numbers are absolutely staggering. And it would lead you to believe that Disney has actually made billions upon billions upon billions of dollars solely from their acquiring of Lucasfilm and ability to put out Star Wars movies. Interestingly, that is not the actual picture as to what's going on. Again, Forbes magazine did a very deep dive investigative journalism project on this about a month and a half ago and published their findings saying Disney Star Wars box office profits fail to cover the cost of buying Lucasfilm. Here's what they found. Box office profits generated by Disney's Star Wars movies, of which there have been 5. Obviously, those are the 3 in the new trilogy. Solo, the Han Solo movie, and Rogue One. So 5 movies total have fallen $2.8 billion short. Almost $3 billion short of covering the media giant's purchase of the sci-fi saga creator Lucasfilm, according to analysis of recently filed financial statements. Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2012, 12 years ago, for $4 billion, and soon gave the green light to a new trilogy of Star Wars movies, which teamed up with rising stars Daisy Ridley, Mark Hamill, All of the stars aligned when The Force Awakens, the first film in the new series, was released in 2015. According to Box Office Mojo, it grossed a staggering $2.1 billion. However, it turns out those numbers are not necessarily indicative of how much money Disney has actually made in the process. They were underreporting how many freelance employees they were paying. They were simply reporting revenue and not overall profit. And so if you just look up how much money was made, you're going to be seeing revenue numbers and not overall profit. So according to this analysis from Forbes magazine, and honestly, I'd love to do more research on this and how it is so disproportionately reported to the public, only $1.2 billion of the $4 billion spent 12 years ago to acquire Lucasfilm has truly been made up by Disney. They are still $2.8 billion short of covering the $4 billion investment to acquire Lucasfilm in the first place. I guess Galaxy's Edge and Disney merch and the Acolyte series just aren't enough to hack it, which is fascinating to me because if we really wanted to think critically about this, if Star Wars is in fact losing that much money for Disney, there are some people saying that Disney might be ready to drop Star Wars because it's such a difficult financial hole to crawl back out of. Do you think there's a possibility, chat, that George Lucas made $4 billion off the sale, just the sale of the company alone, not even the profits and revenue that he made from Star Wars long before that? Do you think there's a scenario in which George Lucas made $4 billion on the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, and then they don't want it anymore, so he buys it back at a lower price than what he originally sold it for, and then proceeds to make better Star Wars movies that people actually like? I don't know. That's what my fiance thinks could be a legitimate possibility, which I think would be the most incredible 4D chess move I've ever seen. Ever. George Lucas would deserve to laugh his ass off for the rest of time. And maybe we could see a scenario in which Star Wars is saved from the brink of insanity. So the real question is this: are you guys going to watch the Acolyte series? I don't know that I will. I was really pleasantly surprised by Ahsoka. I thought they handled it really, really well. The one episode where she goes and fights with Anakin, that might be the best fight scene I've ever seen in Star Wars. Like, that episode, we talked about it at the time when it came out, might be the best few minutes of Star Wars in the entire franchise I've ever seen. Of course, there were things I didn't love about the series, but overall I thought they handled it really well. Most people really hated the Obi-Wan series. I didn't hate it. I wish they would have turned it into a movie because it felt like a whole lot of filler content. I think it would have done better as a movie, and there were some contradictions there people were really upset by. But I am not excited about Acolyte. Josh says, nope, I am not going to watch this at all. Bettina says we should just boycott Disney at this process. Yeah. Hard hat reptiles. Hell no, I am not watching that. Well, there you go. Joey, hell nah. Hell nah. Glenn says no, capital N-O. Yoga Fairy Chelsea. The real question is why the same ideas and storylines are rehashed over and over and over again. I'm sick of all the same things coming out with a ton of sequels. I wish they would just come up with fresh ideas. I feel frustrated about that actually just across Hollywood right now, to be honest with you. I don't think that's even just isolated to Lucasfilm or Disney in and of itself. I mean, gosh, Disney has so little original ideas that they're just making live actions or sequels to every single story ever. This year alone, aren't we getting a Moana 2 animated and a Moana live action? And we're getting a different Lilo and Stitch live action. And there's one more, isn't there? Another sequel or a live act. I mean, literally, they're just out of ideas. They're just, Inside Out. It was Inside Out 2. That's coming later this year. There are no new ideas. Inside Out, when it originally came out, was a fascinating, brilliant novel concept that nobody had ever thought of before. So I think, honestly, there's just not a lot of creativity in media right now at large anyway. It's smaller independent film companies and production companies that are coming up with original ideas or adapting new video games and TV shows and all of that. I especially feel that way in the realm of movies because I feel like most budgets and most creativity now is going towards series because all of these streaming platforms realize that they can make a whole lot more money off of series rather than movies. So I too am frustrated, Yoga Fairy Chelsea, with the same stories being rehashed over and over and over again. But I don't know that we're going to see a huge change in the other direction anytime soon. JK, I absolutely loved the first 10 minutes of Acolyte until they started talking about the main characters having two mothers, yada, yada, yada. Well, that sounds pretty on brand. Lovely. Everybody says movies are horrible now. Vicky the kosher carnivore. I would rather watch a Biden speech than watch Disney Star Wars. That's pretty bad. That's how you know it's gotten really, really bad. Nitty Witty, I'm not going to watch it. Not going to let comments in an interview. I am going to watch it. I'm not going to let comments in an interview diminish my love for Star Wars. Well, I hope for your sake, Nitty Witty, that the show is actually good. Alex says I'm not watching it because it's not really Star Wars. So, I don't know. Magic Def says the Force is gay. Well, maybe it is now. Maybe it's Gay Wars instead of Star Wars these days. I don't know, but I am sick and freaking tired of yet another interview going viral talking about the importance of queering the Star Wars universe. Because if there's one way to shove your entire existing fan base out the back door while kicking them in the ass in the process, it's to tell them that they are evil. Rule number 1 of marketing and publicity: always ridicule and mock your fan base, and then blame them when your show gets no viewership and has a horrible audience score. Make it make sense. I'm going to go rewatch some Clone Wars this evening, so may the Force be with all of you. As we're ending the show today, and in the midst of all of the insanity, I highly recommend you guys check out the world's largest Christian prayer app, Hallow, our other sponsor of today's episode. Hallow has totally transformed my entire prayer life and has been a wonderful anecdote to the insanity of the world, with more than 10,000 prayers, guided meditations, podcast episodes, mental health resources, and more. They are offering you guys a 3-month free trial to all of the content on their incredible platform if you go right now to Hallow, HALLOW.com/Isabel, and lots of fun announcements to come on the Hallow front later on in the year. Love you guys so much. Stay strong out there. Stay gay, apparently, nerds. May the Force be with you, and we'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. ish Eastern.